only an island. But from this island, so modest in size that no place is more than 75 miles from the sea, from this small green castle island sprang parliamentary government, the most far-flung empire ever known, and the language that holds together the free world. For nations on 5 continents, this island holds the mother country of their parliaments and their civil law. And for millions of North Americans, it's an ancestral homeland. London is its hub, the center of the English-speaking universe, a capital of commerce, of theater and the arts, of entertainment, of elegant shopping and strolling, and of sights both curious and colossal. London is so great a city and England looms so large in reputation that a first-time visitor may lose sight of just how small this island is. Keep in mind that the places we'll be visiting are rarely more than a half-day's trip from London. Canterbury, where an archbishop was murdered by the henchmen of a king. Prehistoric Stonehenge, as old as the pyramids of the pharaohs. Bath, a dazzling spa where kings and queens cavorted. Plymouth, from where the Pilgrim Fathers set sail. Hauntingly familiar through the novels Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, the Yorkshire Moors. Glorious Buckingham Palace, ancestral home of Winston Churchill. An ancient Celtic kingdom of poetry and song, Wales. The port city of Liverpool, where the Beatles launched their fabulous careers. The serene Lake District. The renowned universities of Oxford and Cambridge. The oldest lived-in royal castle on earth, Windsor. And Shakespeare's Stratford-upon-Avon. This is Britain. Royal Britain. Who are these English, our hosts when we visit their island, moored as it is between the English Channel to the east and the dark Atlantic to the west? Their long history reveals, sometimes brutally, that there is sterling a mixture of human odds and ends as those breeds known as Americans, Canadians, and Australians. And their roots go deeply into prehistory. Sheep graze among the sacred stones of a prehistoric race that peopled this island tens of centuries ago, whose cairns, dolmens, and mounds contour the countryside. These Welshmen are direct descendants of the Celts, with whom British history began. Their boats are coracles, the small boats of the Celts, unchanged since Britain was a patchwork of Celtic kingdoms. In the century before Christ, Julius Caesar invaded with his conquering legions. Romans laid the foundation of civilized Britain, stately temples and courts of law, baths and villas, roads and sewers, and agricultural know-how. You can visit Roman ruins in many parts of the island. When Rome fell and her legions marched sadly out of Britannia, warlike Teutonic tribes from the continent, Jutes, Angles, Saxons, crossed the Channel and took over the island, establishing several feisty kingdoms of their own. In time, the whole hotly contested island, Saxon kingdoms and all, became known as the land of just one of those Teutonic interlopers, the Angles. Angle land, or England. And no sooner were things settling down than Vikings began invading. They hacked out a chunky kingdom of their own, with Jorvik, now called York, as their capital. Of these tribal ingredients, time was a yeast that gave rise to a national character. Then, as the mixture was beginning to settle, another invasion. In 1066, William, Duke of Normandy, crossed the English Channel and with his victory at Hastings conquered England. Now a dash of Norman French was added to the mixture. In our day, William might have made that trip from France to Britain under the Channel, enjoying a stupendous engineering project undertaken jointly by the Republic of France and the United Kingdom. A project that sparked endless debates among the English.
Money for that long
It's one of the largest and most complex civil engineering projects ever conceived. I know about it.
From this island melting pot came a distinctively British mold of character. A Roman respect for law, a Teutonic devotion to duty, a Celtic passion for poetry,
There is your ship inside a bottle.
and a Viking's mastery of the sea, which for several centuries had made Britannia ruler of the waves. The British are famed for other traits too, some of which border on eccentricity. An old school sense of fair play. If it's lacking, it just isn't cricket. An obsession with their gardens. A dithery devotion to their dogs. And a deeply felt loyalty to the Queen. Though they're aware that despite the royal pageantry, at times, she's just another doting grandmother. Europeans approach Britain from the east, crossing the English Channel by boat train or ferry from Calais in France, or Belgium's Ostend, or the Hook of Holland, disembarking as William the Conqueror had in the lovely south of England. Dover, and a first view of its chalky white cliffs. The city of Dover is a cross-channel port bustling with visitors to and from the continent. Garden of England is what the county of Kent is called, the pastoral England of the picture books, with fragrant fields to stroll in, and placid rivers for boating, with castles rising from shimmering moats. It was here in Leeds Castle that, as a young woman, Queen Elizabeth I was held prisoner. With a coastline textured with golden beaches and harbors for sailing craft. With friendly towns and villages, their names sometimes reading like a menu.
John Barleycorn is a hero bold as any in the land.
In
His
rural
fame
Kent,
is
hops are the cash
great
crop.
far and wide, and will forever
Vital to the tang and the taste of beer,
Give me
British hops
my
from Kent are
native
prized by brewers
brown ale.
and savored in the
All
local
other
pubs.
drinks I'll scorn, for true English cheer is English beer, our own John Barleycorn. Hey, John.
Public houses, or pubs, are a way of life throughout Britain. They're wholesome gathering places offering lager, ale, sherry, or spirits with traditional pub fare.
Barleycorn.
The cathedral town of Canterbury has been drawing people since Chaucer's Pilgrims of Canterbury Tales. For almost 1,000 years, this cathedral has been the seat of the archbishop who heads the English church. Thomas Becket, an archbishop of the 12th century, was murdered here, and here he is entombed. Becket had been friend and chancellor to King Henry II, but when a clash occurred, Becket chose the church against the crown.
Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?
The king had cried. The king's henchmen confronted Becket with their swords. Here he was murdered. Later, King Henry did penance for his part in the crime. Stripped naked, he was flogged before the populace. A later monarch, George IV, was anything but a penitent. It was he who turned a fishing village on the south coast into an 18th century Disneyland. Seaside Brighton is just an hour by train from London's Victoria Station. It offers everything a vacationer could hope for, except peace and quiet. As Prince Regent, George's bizarre triumph was the Royal Pavilion, and here he entertained like a prince. On at least one occasion, His Royal Highness gorged himself in the big kitchen among the pots and pans of the scullions.
Now we're ready to head for the owner. Way, hey, roll and go. Our boots and our clothes, boys, are all in the pond. To be rollicking randy dandy oh.
For a gust of briny Britain, Portsmouth, where the fleet puts in, 70 miles south of London. It was from Portsmouth on D-Day, June 6, 1944, that Allied troops set forth to invade Nazi-occupied France, the biggest single thrust toward victory in the European War. But Portsmouth has been logging naval histories for many a century. Lord Nelson's flagship is in dry dock here, shipshape and Yare. The Mary Rose had been lying at the sea's bottom for more than 4 centuries. Flagship of a fleet of men of war, she sank in full view of King Henry VIII on a July day in 1545. In 1982, she was raised and put on display. Her hull will have to be kept wet for another 20 years or so, and then gradually permeated with silicone wax. Most of the 50,000 items salvaged from the Mary Rose are in an excellent state of preservation and now make up an exhibition of their own. In legend, the West Country was the realm of King Arthur. In fact, it's a Camelot to British holidaymakers. The ideal hour to visit Stonehenge is at dawn on the summer solstice, for then the sun rises directly above the heel stone, illuminating the theory that Stonehenge had been an astronomical observatory. But no one knows for sure. This megalithic structure dates back 30 to 40 centuries. It is the most awesome prehistoric monument in the world. Stonehenge still baffles, still mystifies. Not too far away, you can pay a call at Longleat House, just one of many stately homes and mansions with their doors open to visitors. Most of these houses are still lived in by aristocrats who today must scrape to pay the taxes on them. At Sheldon Manor, which has been lived in for over 700 years, you can take tea in the garden.
Now, shall we go along upstairs, through the dog gate?
Before touring the house.
We're coming now into the priest's room, which is the oldest room in the house and one of the very oldest in Wiltshire. It goes back to 1282. Sir Geoffrey Gaslin, who built the house.
Sharing the Salisbury Plain with Stonehenge, the Cathedral of Salisbury. Its soaring spire, the highest in England. Pantheons deep in the landscaped gardens of Starhead recall woodland nymphs of 18th century fancies. But every summer for 4 days, Starhead is overrun by flappers of the roaring 20s. Eccentric, nostalgic, romantic. The Starhead Jazz Festival. Plymouth in Devonshire has one of the finest natural harbors in the world. From here in 1620, the Pilgrim Fathers set sail for North America. For the folk who've lived here for centuries, the sea is the salt of life, a source of their food, and their fun. Of the famed Plymouth Sea Dogs, Sir Francis Drake stands tallest on history's horizon, the first Englishman to navigate the globe. People here never tire of dressing up and reliving that windy day in July of 1588. Sir Francis was enjoying a game of bowls when sailing by Plymouth Hoe was a great flotilla, 125 armed vessels manned by 24,000 men eager to pillage Little England. Historians call it the Spanish Armada. The alarm was sounded. Sports lover that he was, Sir Francis finished his game of bowls before attending to the Spanish. The most celebrated spa in England, Bath. The occupying Romans were quick to take advantage of the waters here, the only natural hot springs in Britain. In 53 AD, they built this health club with an Olympian pool with promenades for relaxing. What was good enough for the Romans was good enough for British royalty. After Queen Anne visited in 1701 to take the waters, Bath was transformed into a Georgian townscape of graceful crescents and stately squares. You can still enjoy a glass of the spring water that earned Bath its name and fame. The rivers Avon and Severn are life-giving arteries to the heart of England, beating peacefully throughout picture book villages, but with a loud murmur in the centers of industry. Peaks District National Park, peak meaning hill in Old English, and Cannock Chase for a glimpse of the fallow deer that abound here. Staffordshire is graced with silvery streams and rivers, Verdant forest glades, and a venerably old cathedral. Alton Towers was the former home of the Earl of Shrewsbury. Now it's the home of one of the world's loveliest leisure parks. Here one can roam acres of fancifully landscaped gardens and enjoy a fun ride at this Coney Island in a lush floral setting. The Gladstone Pottery Museum in Longton, one of 6 pottery towns making up Stoke-on-Trent, merits a visit. To lovers of fine English china, a visit is more like a pilgrimage. Here, 200-year-old methods of porcelain and china making are still practiced. Methods have kept up with today's technology, yet the sterling craftsmanship is the same, which visitors to the potteries see for themselves.
Well, as you see that one there now, that one is drying out very slowly.
Wedgwood, Spode, Royal Doulton, hand gilding is a fine brush application of liquid 22-karat gold. Beauty, quality, function. The china of Staffordshire is prized the world over. It was in Shropshire that a giant step was taken that changed civilization. Iron Bridge. Here in 1779, the world's first iron bridge was built. It fast became a symbol of the Industrial Revolution. Here, for the first time, coal replaced charcoal, making possible iron production on a huge scale. But like all revolutions, the industrial one was not without its casualties. Farm folk, men, women, and children deserted the countryside for industry, for toil in the mines. You can visit these mines today if you don't mind wearing a hard hat. For toil in the factories, 12-hour shifts, 6.5 days a week. Today they're museums. And you can visit a typical one-room worker's cottage where a man, his wife, and 6 children lived. When they were out of work, they had no crops to fall back on. Many turned to drink. One of the blessings of the new industrialism was the steam locomotive. Railroads began binding the world together with a network of track. At Bridgnorth Station, you can board the finest preserved steam railway in Britain. For those who remember steam, it's nostalgic. And for today's generation, it's a trip into the golden age of railroading. The track runs some 16 scenic miles. Gazing through the rail carriage window, it's obvious that in the post-industrial age, farming has made a beautiful comeback in Shropshire. Westward along the Severn, England's longest river, to the place where the Severn loops the lovely Tudor town of Shrewsbury. timbered houses. Even the street names cry out from another century. Butcher Road, Fish Street. Across the Shropshire moorlands lies a neighboring country whose patron is St. David, whose flower is the leek, and whose national emblem is the Celtic harp. Wales, stronghold of the ancient Celts, where Gaelic, a tongue of poets, is still the national language. There was no better spokesman for his native Wales than the late Richard Burton.
This is my country, Wales. Farming is still an important part of the Welsh economy. In Wales, there are said to be 3 sheep to every 1 person. Shepherds are justly proud of their sharp-witted dogs and bring them regularly to the sheepdog trials. It's a place to come and see a tense game of skill and control. At the moment of truth, it's a battle of wills between sheep and sheepdog. It's our first sport and second religion, rugby football. It's tough and exciting. Carnarvon Castle. Investiture of Prince Charles as Prince of Wales took place in this courtyard setting.
I, Charles, Prince of Wales, do become your liege man of life and limb, and of earthly worship. And faith and truth I will bear unto thee, to live and die against all manner of folks.
Across blue Llyn Padarn, Snowdon itself rises, proudly the highest mountain in all England and Wales. Here is the heart of Wales, with more than enough beauty to share it out generously amongst her friends. But the whole of Wales is my heritage.
The Rose Counties. A swath across north-central England from sea to sea. Liverpool. Though this city was chartered in the 13th century, its look and feel is modern. After visiting great Gothic cathedrals, Liverpool's Roman Catholic Cathedral emerges as a paragon of contemporary church design. It is built over a vast crypt where a 6-ton circular stone seals the tombs of deceased archbishops. With 7 miles of waterfront on the Mersey estuary, Liverpool is a thriving Atlantic port. It was the last port that masses of European immigrants saw before sighting the Statue of Liberty. It's also a first port for new ideas from abroad in pop art and pop music. With some exaggeration, American poet Allen Ginsberg called Liverpool the center of human consciousness. Perhaps that's why those 4 Liverpudlians in need of haircuts got their act together here.
Came out with the name Beatles, and what does it really mean?
John thought of the name Beatles, and he'll tell you about it now. It means Beatles, doesn't it? You know, that's just a name. You know, like shoe. It means shoe.
The shoes. You see, we could have been called the shoes for all you know.
The Liverpool Tourist Office sponsors trips to the homes where the lads grew up. John Lennon's, Paul's, George's, Ringo's. There's a replica of the Cavern nightclub where they began their career as a group. Liverpool is the holy city of Beatlemania. In the Cumbrian mountains, gathering waters rush downward into 16 Ice Age lakes of incomparable beauty. Nature took millions of years to carve out the Lake District, the loveliest region in a lovely land. The poet Wordsworth lived here, convinced that human dignity and freedom lay in a communion with nature.
'Tis a sense of majesty and beauty and repose, a blend of holiness of earth and sky.
The district is now a national park. Despite the numbers of visitors it attracts, it remains unspoiled. To the east lies the walled city of York with its great cathedral. York was once the Viking capital of England. Train buffs flock to the National Railway Museum here. Its collection of old locomotives and rolling stock is superb. This train belonged to the royal family, and one can get a peek into its sumptuous railway carriages. The wind-lashed Yorkshire Moors, strangely beautiful in their desolation, draw visitors versed in the poems and novels of the Brontes. Clinging to the top of a hill is the village of Haworth. Near the church stands a parsonage, where in 1820 the Reverend Patrick Bronte brought his family to live. A museum today, it's open to visitors. The mother died tragically, leaving a son, 3 daughters, and her husband, who brooded in seclusion for the rest of his life. Charlotte, the eldest daughter, did her best to look after the others. Emily, though desperately shy, was the most brilliant of the 3. Anne, the youngest, was sensitive and gentle. They had no inkling that the poems and novels that they wrote in secret in this room would one day haunt the memories of millions of readers. Almost every person and place they knew found their way into their writings. It was from the lonely moors that Emily drew her inspiration.
The breeze that stirs the grasses here on Wuthering Heights carried on its breath the voices of Heathcliff and Cathy.
Moving south now through the shires toward London. Fabled Sherwood Forest in Nottinghamshire. This is Robin Hood country. But a lot has changed since Robin and his merry men romped in these parts. Yet a trip to the Jerusalem pub can be a pleasant step into the past. It was cut into the solid rock of Nottingham Castle, making it the oldest pub in Britain. Cambridge, where tourists can view the colleges while punting beneath the willows on the River Cam. Founded in 1284, a roll call of Cambridge University alumni is staggering. Chaucer, Milton, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, and just as proudly, Nehru, the first Prime Minister of the Republic of India. Only 21 miles from London lies sprawling Windsor Castle, edged by the picturesque town of Windsor. A side trip to Runnymede allows a visit to the John F. Kennedy Memorial, a gift of the British people.
And the passionate enthusiasm which he brought to his labors gave courage, inspiration, and above all, new hope. With all their hearts, my people shared his triumphs, grieved at his reverses, and wept at his death.
It's Sunday afternoon, and a band concert is in progress on the east terrace of Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle is a huge place covering 13 acres. Its facade is an array of towers built by British monarchs through the centuries. But to the royal family that lives here, it's a homestead holding volumes of personal memories. On Sundays, several of the rooms are open to visitors. 400 years ago, Queen Elizabeth I commanded that Shakespeare's Merry Wives of Windsor be performed for her in this room, now called the Waterloo Chamber. It's the same room where Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, as children, performed amateur pantomimes for their royal parents. During the late 1930s, Elizabeth grew up at Windsor. It was at Windsor that Elizabeth was wooed by handsome Prince Philip of Greece. In Windsor Great Park these days, Prince Philip is seen practicing the colorful sport of driving teams of horses four in hand, for which he's won many trophies. And it was from Windsor in 1936 that Elizabeth's uncle, King Edward VIII, broadcast his abdication, giving up his crown to his brother for the woman he loved. It rocked the British monarchy. Edward had grown up a golden child, groomed to reign over the greatest empire on earth, and he was used to getting his own way. As the bachelor Prince of Wales, he was a fairy tale prince of modern myth and a prize catch for any princess. He ascended the throne when he was 44 and announced that he would take to wife an American divorcee, Wallis Warfield Simpson, and make her his queen. The Prime Minister and the Archbishop of Canterbury forbade it. Edward didn't get his own way. From a small room in Windsor in which he'd played as a child, he broadcast his abdication to the peoples of the British Empire.
That I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do, without the help and support of the woman I love. And now we all have a new king, God save the King.
Edward married Mrs. Simpson and went into exile. The title with which he and the woman he loved lived out their days was the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. The pulse and capital of Great Britain. This is London. From the wharf of the Tower of London, the Honourable Artillery Company is firing a 41-gun salute. The Tower of London is a great fortress created by William the Conqueror 900 years ago. It is the single most popular tourist attraction in the Old World. Over the centuries, it has functioned as a palace, an armory, a record office of the King's Justice, and today, treasury of the Crown Jewels. The yeoman warders who guard the jewels are popularly known as beefeaters. Their fluted collars and red tunics are as emblematic of Britain as the Union Jack. They're always there to give help and information. While a prison and place of execution, the Tower got a grisly reputation. This reads like a who's who of Tudor England. Among the numbers of heads that rolled here were those of Sir Thomas More, author of Utopia, Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife, and his fifth wife, Catherine Howard, and the Earl of Essex, suitor of the first Queen Elizabeth. River Thames is straddled by the giant city, the famous London bridges shackling its banks. Tower Bridge has become a symbol of the river. Blackfriars Bridge offers a fine view of St. Paul's Cathedral. Sir Christopher Wren was commissioned to rebuild the old St. Paul's, which had been destroyed in London's Great Fire of 1666. The architect is buried in the cathedral. His epitaph reads in Latin, "Here lies Sir Christopher Wren. If you would see his monument, look around you." St. Paul's was chosen for Prince Charles' wedding, as opposed to Westminster Abbey, because the cathedral can hold more guests. 2,500 people were invited to attend the ceremony. At Westminster Bridge lie the Houses of Parliament and the clock that Londoners set their watches by. Parliament is housed in the Palace of Westminster. This has been its home since 1547. Some 50 years thereafter, Guy Fawkes attempted to blow up the place with gunpowder. Ever since, the event's been celebrated with bonfires on Guy Fawkes Day. Where else but in England would a man be so celebrated for trying to blow up the government? The House of Commons, where the gritty tasks of government are debated. Throughout this chamber, great voices have rung. Lloyd George's, Churchill's, the cornerstone of the kingdom, Westminster Abbey. For 9 centuries, English royalty has been certified in this ancient church. In stupendous weddings, outcomes of royal matchmaking, and just a cold breath away, certified in death. But the most vital certification in a monarchy is the crowning of a new sovereign. This oak throne, scarred and worn, was made in 1300 for the crowning of Edward I. It's been the choicest seat at coronations ever since.
I here present unto you Queen Elizabeth, your undoubted queen. Wherefore all you who are come this day to do your homage and service, are you willing to do the same?
There's a niche in the Abbey for the royalty of writers, the laurel-crowned peers of literature. Visitors grow fond of Poets' Corner. Geoffrey Chaucer is entombed here, as are many of England's greatest writers. Among these titans of pen and typewriter, the American Henry Wadsworth Longfellow has been given place. Just wandering on foot through London's side streets and little lanes can be excursions into warm memories of books that we've read and bits of poetry that have stayed with us. Samuel Johnson's house is tucked away on a small court.
When a man is tired of London, he is tired of life.
It was in a house on Wimpole Street that Robert Browning courted Elizabeth Barrett Browning.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach.
On Tite Street in Chelsea lived playwright and wit Oscar Wilde.
There is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about.
The American author of Poor Richard's Almanac dwelt in this house during his stay in London. For mystery fans grounded in the old London of pea-soup fogs and grisly crimes to be solved, there are streets and places as familiar as Big Ben's bonging. Scotland Yard, and the street where fictional Sherlock Holmes shared a flat with Dr. Watson. Camera-clicking sightseers gather at the gates of the Queen's official London home, Buckingham Palace. At 11 o'clock each weekday morning, the ceremonious changing of the guard. The Buckingham Palace balcony must be the most famous balcony in the world, and certainly the most photographed. One of royalty's most frequent public duties, waving. But public kissing? In Queen Victoria's time, this was against the law in London. It was Prime Minister Gladstone who first advised that the best way to see London is from the top of a red double-deck bus. There's always a bobby about to give directions. A colossus of Admiral Lord Nelson gazing out with indifference to the traffic snarl below. That same Sea Dog Nelson who, in 1815, won and died at the Battle of Trafalgar. This is Trafalgar Square, the hub of London. Moneylenders in the 13th century staked out this area as the city's financial district. which in recent centuries has been warded by the Bank of England, that old lady of Threadneedle Street. London's Stock Exchange is the financial powerhouse of the old world. There are over 120 worthwhile museums and galleries in London. None are more rewarding to the visitor or more exhausting than the British Museum. It was founded by an Act of Parliament in 1753, and ever since, collectibles of every land and era have been flowing in. A museum of a different sort is Madame Tussaud's, the most celebrated waxworks in the world. Skill and meticulous care go into crafting these uncannily lifelike figures. Madame Tussaud, who had lived through the French Revolution, began her waxworks with a figure of Marie Antoinette, for which she used the guillotined queen's head for the modeling. In 1835, she brought her waxworks to London. Whodunit fans get more than a clue as to what this famous writer of mysteries looked like. A macabre exhibit, but fascinating. A recreation of Jack the Ripper's London, the 10 Bells pub, the wet gaslit streets where the city's most notorious criminal mutilated his victims with the skill and deftness of a surgeon. This is the neighborhood that he terrorized, London's East End. The 10 Bells pub is still here, doing a lively business, thank you. Pop in for a pie and a pint. Over a century has passed, and the Ripper's identity is still a mystery. Amateur sleuths with pet theories about the Ripper are welcome to look around during daylight. The big city is cushioned by swards of green, emerald islands, and a sea of brick and stone. These parks are the lungs of London. St. James's Park, spreading out from Buckingham Palace, is London's oldest royal park. Once it belonged to King Henry VIII, who claimed this vast wooded preserve for hunting forays. Today, it belongs to the people. It was Charles I who opened 360-acre Hyde Park to the public. Perhaps in appreciation, there are gun salutes on all the royal birthdays. London is the green of its parks, the scarlet of its royal pageants, and the imperial grey granite of its history. But what of the clown-faced colors of life in the warrens of Brompton or Bloomsbury, Chelsea or Covent Garden? In Covent Garden, London is theatre. Out on the streets, as in the playhouses, morning, noon, and night. The neighborhoods of Covent Garden exude a kind of magic. It's a place for playing hide and seek with your fantasies. The Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. One of the city's most venerable showplaces. Its lobby a gallery of mementos of past performances. Caruso, Melba, Geely, Callis. Today, it's the home of the Royal Ballet, and current productions vie with those of the past in brilliance. It was in Covent Garden that the first Punch and Judy show made its noisy debut. Punch's shenanigans have been tickling kids for a scoop of centuries. A delight to visitors and a daily diversion for Londoners, the irrepressible Covent Garden Market. It was in this market in George Bernard Shaw's popular comedy Pygmalion that Professor Higgins meets Eliza Doolittle, a Cockney wench who sells flowers. The rest is theatrical history. The play Pygmalion went on to become My Fair Lady, one of the most popular musicals of all time. London lists two St. Paul's, the great cathedral and St. Paul's Covent Garden. This is the Actors' Church. Here, British artists of stage and screen are remembered, even after the public has forgotten them. At Picadilly Circus, theater is London. Radiating from Piccadilly's light-spangled hub are a host of playhouses running premium ticket shows, some destined to become next season's Broadway hits, and after that, perhaps, blockbuster movies. But they're premiered in London. Theater going here is a sealing nightcap to the London experience. After the heady sights of London, back to the heart of England, through Oxfordshire and Warwickshire. In miles, the distances are short. In history, it's a span of centuries. Of all great universities in the English-speaking world, Oxford is the most renowned. A visitor can spend days just wandering through its colleges, libraries, and museums. Such diverse intellects as Thomas More's and Oscar Wilde's were honed here. During the 1700s, a student here named John Wesley organized a student group of devout Christians. They were nicknamed the Methodists. Today, Wesley's Methodism has spread throughout the world. Charles Dodgson was an Oxford math professor. On his sabbaticals, he wrote Alice in Wonderland under the pen name Lewis Carroll. Spreading from the shores of a man-made lake in Oxfordshire are 2,700 acres of parkland belonging to Buckingham Palace. Blenheim, seat of the Dukes of Marlborough, a Baroque palace of magnificent proportions surrounded by formal gardens. What draws visitors here is an interest in Winston Churchill. It happened that he was born at Blenheim. The rooms are sumptuous, all 320 of them, befitting the great Dukes of Marlborough, from whom Winston was descended on his father's side. But the most visited room of all is Winston Churchill's. Visitors from the United States are reminded that a good deal of American blood flowed through Winston Churchill's veins, that his mother was warm-blooded Jenny Jerome of New York, that Douglas MacArthur was a distant cousin, and that Winston's great-great-great-grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois Indian. It's more than half-timbered houses with Tudor gables that draw 500,000 visitors to Stratford-upon-Avon each year. It's the dust of Shakespeare. There were no theater buildings in this old market town when William Shakespeare was born on Henley Street in 1564. Today, there's the splendid Royal Shakespeare Theatre, with performances given from March through November. Young Shakespeare had to trek a mile to court Anne Hathaway at the thatch, wattle, and daub cottage of her parents. But he left wife Anne and their children and went to London in pursuit of a theatrical career. When he returned to Stratford to retire many years later, he had created a body of work unparalleled in human achievement. Shakespeare's retirement was short-lived. He died on his birthday in 1616 and was buried in Holy Trinity Parish. He must have loved Stratford, for in his plays and poems there are so many references to flowers, foliage, sights, and sounds that abound here. His first acquaintance with the feudal world of Hotspur and Falstaff and Prince Hal, whom he immortalized in his historical plays, may have been here, at nearby Warwick Castle, perched on a rocky crag above the river Avon. For visitors with a stomach for it, there's a groan-by-groan tour of the castle's torture chamber. Perhaps it was a glimpse of this place that inspired Shakespearean lines such as the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Undoubtedly, he'd have recognized Warwick Castle as it stands today. What Shakespeare would find changed is the cathedral city of Coventry, only 19 miles from Stratford. But he'd be quick to grasp how Coventry came to be a symbol of the resilience of the English people. November 1940. Coventry is blitzed in a devastating air raid by Hitler's Luftwaffe. With the destruction of its 14th century cathedral, the city's proud and ancient history goes up in smoke. What remained of the old cathedral was rebuilt after the war with the help of young volunteer workers from Germany. On the wall behind the cross, it reads, "Father, forgive." By the early 1960s, a new Coventry Cathedral arose, embracing all denominations. A masterpiece of modern architecture rising from a medieval rubble to the heights of England's faith in the future and in itself. The England that Shakespeare had written of 4 centuries ago.
This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this precious stone set in the silver sea, this happy breed of men, this little world, this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England.